With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yoma Daf Vav. We're going to be going back to the rule that we learned in the Mishnah of Mafrishin Kohen Gadol, or Shivas Yomim before Yom Kippur. Mafrishin Kohen Gadol. Mafrishin means that he's taken away from his wife. He remains alone in that chamber in the Beis Hamikdash. The Gemara is going to ask, why can't his wife join him? Him being removed from his home is going to guarantee that he will not become tummy with Tumas Meis. What's the concern that his wife is going to be with him, which will lead us into this entire sugya of Boyel Nida, Kenida. We're going to review the first halacha that we learned in Nida, that Midder Rabbanan, when a woman discovers that she became a Nida, not for dinim of Taras HaMishpacha, but for dinim of Truma and Kachim, we say that she retroactively becomes Tameh from either 24 hours or from the last time that she made a Bedika. We're going to see whether this retroactive Tuma carries on to the husband or not. We're going to be questioning other specifics regarding Boyel Nida Kenida, whether the husband becomes mamish like her specifically. A Nida is a woman that can only go to the mikveh at night, after the 7 days of Nida. Question is going to be, when we say that if a man has a relation with a woman who's a Nida, he becomes tummy like her, he becomes tummy for 7 days, can he at least go to the mikveh during the day, or must he also wait only until night? Now that question will really shed light on another specific din which is connected to Yoma. And that is that when we say that Shivas Yomim before Yom Kippur, Mafrishin Kohen Gadol, exactly what day of Tishrei is that? Are we Mafrishin the Kohen Gadol on the second day of Tishrei? Or are we Mafrishin the Kohen Gadol only from the third day of Tishrei, as we will explain? And finally, we will have on Daf Avam and Beis the machloikas regarding the dispensation that we have in the Torah, all sourced from Psachim. That, let's go with Psachim, that if the majority of the community is Tameh with Tumas Meis, that they still will bring the Karban Pesach. Only ish ki yeh Tameh lo nefesh, only an individual that is Tameh is going to be told, you got to bring Pesach Sheni. But if the community is Tameh, they bring Pesach Rishon, and from there we have a Gezeda Shavar for all other Karbanos Tzibur, that if the source of Tumah is a mace, then there's a certain amount of permissibility to bring it even bit Tumah. We will see whether we view this as it's completely permitted, that's known as Tumah Hutra B'Tzibur, or do we say, no, it's not permitted, it's Dechuya, it's overridden. Lamay Nafkamina, do we have to make an effort to bring it Betara or not? Tumah Hutra means it's completely permitted. Tumah Dechuya means, if there's no other option, it's overridden, but make an effort, and we'll see how this will be Negeya to our Sugya. And finally, if we'll have time, it's small Dafim, we're going to already start Daf Zayin, which tells us about something else concerning Tumah in the Beis Hamikdash, which is Tzitz Meratza, which means that if the meat of the Karban is Tameh, if the meat of the Karban is Tameh, not the Kohen. Kohen is Tameh is a problem. And if it was already brought, the Karban was made, whether it's a Karban Yachid, whether it's a Karban Sibur, doesn't matter the source of Tumah either, we say that the Karban was effective. Because the tzitz, either the Kohen Gadol's wearing of the tzitz or the existence of the tzitz, brings about that Hashem accepts the Karban even though there was Tumah there, and a lot more. Chavra, let us start on Daf Vav Amud Aleph. We left off by the 2 dots, 8 lines from the top of the Amud. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'achol ni'madvari. Says the Gemara, we learned in the Mishnah, Mafrishin Kohen Gadol, we sequester the Kohen Gadol v'chuli. Sequestering means that he left his house, but sequestering also means that he's not with his wife. Frek the Gemara, v'lama mafrishin, why do we have to separate him? Why do we have to sequester him? Before the Gemara finished the question, whoever was sitting there was shocked with the question. Lama mafrishin? You're asking me this right now on Daf Vav? What are you talking about? Kida Amaninan, we already explained it. Ile Rabbi Yechanan, Kida Islay. We learned that from the Meluyim. Aaron HaKohen was sequestered. Ile Reish Lakish, Kida Islay, Moshe Rabbeinu was sequestered, according to him, in the cloud for 6 days. So the Gemara clarifies the question. Hachik Amar, Why was there a need to separate the Kohen Gadol from his wife? Why can she not join him on temple grounds? In other words, since that the primary fear is for him not to have contact with the source of Tumas Meis, fine, that's the Iker worry, and as we learned already, the Braisa that we'll have on Daf Ches, that they would sprinkle the waters of the red heifer on him, just in case he was already tummy with Tumas Meis. Okay, keep him away from any potential Tumas Meis. But why would we care if his wife joins him? And like Rashi points out, that obviously the Lishkas Parhedrin, that we never yet clarified exactly where it is not located in a place in the Azara that has Kedushas Azara. Because then he would not be allowed to be with his wife in that area of Kedusha. The very fact that he's allowed to sit and sleep, there's a rule that Ein Yeshiva Ba'azara only Lamalchus Beis David. Which means it's Lishkas Panhedrin was not in the area of the Azara. It was in the temple complex, but it was on Harabayas. And there a man can be with his wife, so why can't his wife join him? Now we already know the answer, but let's get the words. The answer is that she might become a Nida. Oh, so the answer is the Gemara. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira Oima. Now here's the words in the Braisa. And we're going to have to tweak the words. Shema timatzei ishtoi safek nida. He might find his wife in a state of safek nida, and we keep these dinim. So, for example, there was some sort of discharge, but there's a doubt whether that color has the status of dam or not. That's a classical safek nida, and because of it only being a safek, he's going to have a relation with her. If it turns out that indeed she was a nida, so this is the rule, that a nida has the level of an av. Now normally if she has contact with something else, or b'chlal, when tumah is conveyed from one to the other, from the source to the derivative, it normally goes down one notch. But there are exceptions. One exception is that if a man has a relation with a woman while she is a nida, whether God forbid it's b'mezid, whether it's b'shoigig, ba'oines, he becomes just as tamei as her. We'll learn more details soon. He becomes an av, also meaning that he has to wait shivas nekim. So it's not only that he becomes tamei as a rishon and he can go to the mikvah. If he'll taka be boil nida, then he will be tamei for 7 days. Oh, so in order to prevent that from happening, he's sequestered away from his wife. The wife stays home, he stays alone in that chamber. Hold on, the words of the Braisa sounds like that if someone's wife is a safek nida, he might have a relation with her. No one is allowed to do that. That's a safek de'oraisa. Ate berishe yaskinan. Nah, we're not worried about that. Ella, what the Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira said is, Shema yavoi alishtoi. He'll have a relation with his wife unbeknownst that there's a nidus issue, but then visimatzei safek nida. Then he'll discover that she might have been a nida. Now, what does that mean? Let's clarify this. So first of all, let's go back to the first Mishnah in Masechtas Nida. When a woman discovers that there is a flow of blood that already left her body, as far as the dinim of Tadas HaMishpacha is concerned nowadays, a woman only becomes a nida from the fine she discovers the blood, she sees the blood, she finds the blood, and onwards. Mikan ulahaba. But as far as the dinim of Tumah and Tadas is concerned, as far as her touching Truma or her touching Kachim, we say that there is retroactive Tumah. How far back do you go? So that was the first Mishnah Nida. That's only Midrabanan, but we go back either 24 hours or until the prior Bidika, whichever one is closer. We limit it. If she made a Bidika on an aid 12 hours ago and it was clean, so we can't say that she was Tamei prior to that. But we say it goes back 12 hours. If she touched Trum or Kachum during that time, Midrabanan, it becomes Tamei. Now the question is, here we're speaking about Tadas HaMishpacha. Yes and no. Because the question isn't only whether the husband here, the Kohen Gadol, will become Tamei retroactively. We won't say that he was Boil Anida B'negei Dinam Tadas HaMishpacha. But since he's in the Beis HaMikdash, he wants to do the Avodah with Kachim. So that is concerning Truma and Kachim. And if we're going to give retroactive Tumah on him, so we're going to say that he became Tamei, because even though she only found the blood after the relation, could be she was Tamei during the relation, and then he'll be Tamei for 7 days. From when they had the relation, Boyal Nida Kanida, again, then he'll be Tamei during Yom Kippur. That is the answer the Gemara gives. Asks the Gemara, hold on, we had this discussion, we learned all about this in Masechtas Nida, and let me just say this by heart. if a couple has a relation, some of these halachas are negeh halacha l'maisa. If the man used a cloth to clean himself after the relation, and on the cloth he finds blood, where did the blood come from? That shows that she was bleeding while they had the relation. Boil nida. But what happens if he did not clean himself, or he cleaned himself and he didn't look at the towel, or the towel was a black towel, she cleaned herself, and she finds dam on her towel. What's the question? When did the blood leave her body? Was she bleeding already while they were having the relation, making him a boil nida? Or, no, maybe when they had the relation she was tohera, the blood began to flow right afterwards. So if you remember, we learned in Nida there are 3 times of her bedika that will determine the status. There was what they called oisiyoim, that was a lashon Yavani, I don't know, Chazal used that over there, which means that right after the relation she looks at her aid, or she looks at her towel. Then we say that since it was mamash after the relation, for sure he is tummy as well. That means she was tummy during the relation. Then there is what the Tanach calls achar, after the time of oisiyam. We're going to learn more details exactly how long that is. It's also a very short amount of time. Then there is achar, after that, after. And as we will see, there is a machlokes tanoim. When do we say that if she finds dam, we say that she already was bleeding during the relation, which will mean that he was boil nida, which will mean he's tummy for 7 days. So again, we can't say the way the original version is that he's going to have a relation with his wife, the Kohen Gadol, when he knows already that there's a suffix. That's otaberish askinan. The fear is that he's going to have a relation with her when he doesn't know that she's an Ida. We're not expecting her to become an Ida. Could be right afterwards she's going to find down. So says the Gemara, if that is the explanation why mafrishin even from his wife, are you telling me that our Mishnah is like Rabbi Akiva, which is never the end of the world? B'chlal, Stam Mishnah, right? Rav Meir, Stam Mishnah is, it always comes back to Rabbi Akiva, correct, but it's a machlokes tanoim. We would always prefer to have a Mishnah go, according to the majority opinion, but maybe it's taka only l'das Rabbi Akiva. The Amar, as we learned in Nida, that Nida mitama es boy Allah, which means that when she discovers, even after, we'll see the details in a moment, how far afterwards, dam on her aid, we say that there's a doubt, maybe she was already in Nida while they had the relation, certainly concerning the dinim of Truma and Kachim, which is what we're talking about over here. Because we want for him to be able to do the avoida of Kachim with the status of Tahara. We don't want him to be Tamei Midoraisa, we don't want him to be Tamei Midrabanan, because continuing in the Gemara, if our Mishnah would also follow Shitas Rabbanan, they're more lenient. Ha'amrei ein nida metama boy Allah. Now, if you start looking up over there, again, like we just quoted, it's not so pashut. The machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim is not as general as it sounds. If she finds dam on her aid, doesn't mean that he was tummy. It depends on. So the Gemara answers, clarifies the Gemara. Amalur Rab Chizda. No, our Mishnah goes according to the Chachamim. At kan loy pligi Rabbanan Allah, the Rabbi Akiva, in which Rabbi Akiva is the most machmir, was only if her examination on her cloth was in the period known as after. Achar. So again, there's oisiyoim, immediately. There is the achar oisiyoim, and then there is the achar. If Takesh, you would make the bedika eresht achar, only Rabbi Akiva says that we say that not only this chumra midrabanan, on her we always say it. Guys, on a woman, not today. When she is touching Truma and Kachim, when we are concerned with Truma and Tara by Truma and Kachim, when a woman discovers that she's in Ida, we say that there's rabbinic retroactive Tumah, either 24 hours prior or until the prior bedika if it was before 24 hours. And therefore, boyal nida kenida, if the husband is touching Truma and Tara, the same thing. But the question is, how do you know he was boyal nida? So we'll see over here exactly when is it that she made the bedika, because she made a bedika here. That's the thing. She made an examination. Aval b'chad achar, but if it's only in the stage called achar, even the chachamim are moedu to Rabbi Akiva that we put this doubt on the husband by saying that maybe he was boyal nida, and therefore he will be tamei because he was boyal nida. and the tumah is again for 7 days. Let's quickly look inside the Rashi, 3 lines under the Gemara, just to review these laws that we have in Nida. Mamash 2-3 words into the 3rd line under the Gemara. So nimtza al shalah knows if he makes a bedika after the relation and there's dam. It's good to know that today. Then you see that she was bleeding during the relation, and then there's nothing to talk about. However, nimtza al shalah, if it's oisiyim, which means v'hu lashon miyad v'lashon yivadi. What does oisiyah mean? Shekincha, that she cleaned herself, beprishas yitzias hashamish, when the male organ left her body, miyad. Then Tameim vadai. Both of them are tummy. Okay. However, nimtza la'achar zman, that's the achar. What does it la'achar zman means? Keloimer sherchika bedika tameim sherchika bedika, then tameim misafik. First of all, it's not vadai, but there's a suffix. And ve'ezu achar, what does that mean? Ve'ezu achar zman kedei sheteted min amita, the time that it takes a woman to go off her bed. And v'tadiach esponel shel mata, that is called achar. In halacha, that's a couple of seconds. I don't know, 5 seconds, 6 seconds, that's what we're talking about. And va'achar kach, right, mitama me'es la'es, but if she made a bedika after that, she will be tamei me'es la'es. She will be tamei me'es la'es as far as trumas kachim is concerned, retroactively. But ve'eina matama es boy Allah. Meaning, if she made a bedika achar, then the chachamim hold she is tamei like any other woman, that there is a rabbinic retroactive tumah as far as her touching taharis is concerned, but there is not even a midrabanan that she's mitamas boy Allah. So holds the chachamim. That was the whole kasha of the Gemara. Only Rabbi Akiva is machmer. Only Rabbi Akiva holds that achar also is matama the husband midrabanan for kachim. So is our Mishnah only Rabbi Akiva? Says the Gemara, no. That the case in the Mishnah is that it's common to make a bedika oisiyim is rare, but to make a bedika in that period called achar, that's something that's common. There's a relation. There is a towel over there. She cleaned herself, and there everyone will be moided that there is this rabbinic tumah limafreya, which means as far as Trum and Kachim is concerned, the husband was a boyel nida. That's why the wife does not go together with the Kohen Gadol in this quarantine. Gavaldik. Amar Rab Zera. Now, what we're learning now does not connect to the detail that we just spoke out. Rab Zera is speaking about the concept that the reason why the wife doesn't join him is because it might turn out that there is a suspicion that it might happen that he'll become a boyel nida. Okay, says Rab Zera, Shmami no, boyel nida eino kenida. That even though boyel nida has the din of a nida, which means he becomes tummy, on a level of a av, he has to wait 7 days before he goes to the mikvah. But he's not exactly like the nida. That's what the meaning. Boyel nida eino kenida. Of course, he's like a nida. The Torah says that utihi nidasa olav. The Torah says that if a man has a relation with a nida, her nidus is on him. Question is, how exact? It's not exact. Meaning that it can be toivel b'yoim. The premise of Rab Zera's statement is that when he learned the Mishnah, he understood that what day of the month do we sequester the Kohen Gadol? On the 3rd day of Tishrei. But they don't do it the moment the 3rd day of Tishrei enters. They do it, probably in the morning, which means that night off, he's still at home. Now let's count. That means prior to this sequestration, he could have been with his wife. Okay, so if he was with his wife in the beginning of the 3rd day of Tishrei, and then it turns out that she examined herself and she found dam, and now we're going to say that retroactive tumah for him also, as far as Trum and Kachim is concerned. So you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which means the 7th day is Erev Yom Kippur. Now, so what? I'll tell you what, so what? If he'll be mamish like a nida, I know that nowadays, my friends, women only go to the mikvah at night, but remember, that's a unique chumrah. Really, the very fact that a woman keeps shivas nakiyim should tell us she should go to the mikvah during the day, because biblically, the only woman that kept shivas nakiyim was a woman that was a zava gedola. A zava gedola went to the mikvah during the day. which is very advantageous. Because if she would go to the mikveh during the day, in our case the 9th, even though you need to wait until it gets dark, fine. When it gets dark, it's Yom Kippur, then you're completely removed from Tumah. But if he would be mamish like a nida, so if he would have a relation with her on the 3rd, and it would turn out that right after the relation she would find blood, we would say that, oh, boyel nida. And then he would have to wait like her to go to the mikveh only at night, which is the night into Yom Kippur, the night of Yom Kippur. They got a problem, not because he does the avodah at night, because the rule is that after you go to the mikveh, you have to wait until the following nightfall for you to be completely tahor to be able to touch truma or kachim, truma and kachim. That means if he would only be allowed to go to the mikveh on the night of the 10th, you know when he would become completely tahor to do the avodah on the 11th on Tishrei. It's too late. So based on the premise that the sequestration happened on the 3rd of Tishrei, but not a little bit prior to the 3rd, not at the end of the 2nd, on the 3rd, which means it could be he'll still have a relation with her on the 3rd, it only works that you resolve this chashash that maybe he will turn out to be a boyel nida if a boyel nida is not exactly like a nida. Yes, he cannot go to the mikveh immediately. Yes, he's tamei like a av, but he can go to the mikveh during the day, which is perfect. So he goes to the mikveh on the 9th, and on the night of Yom Kippur, which is the 10th, which is when he has to do the avodah, he's completely tahor. Because the amrad boyel nida is mamish kenida, which would mean a must tavel when we would go to the mikveh. Balayla means the 9th of Yom Kippur, the 9th going into Yom Kippur. So how can he do the avodah tomorrow? After the mikveh, you have to wait for the next nightfall. So if I would go to the mikveh a minute before Shkia, Gavaldik, you know how long I would have to wait for head of Shemesh? I don't know the time that it takes. Let's go with the Alter Rebbe, 32 minutes, I'm good. But if I went to the mikveh after it says, I only have my head of Shemesh the next 24 hours later. So says Rebbe Zera, to which Rab Simi or Shimi from Narda says no, the whole premise is wrong. I will argue that boyel nida is kenida, which means mamish, that just like a nida, not a zava gedola, just like a nida has to wait until night, he will have to wait until night. And when the Mishnah says Shivas Yomim before Yom Kippur Mafrishim Kohen Gadol Olishkas Parhedrin, who says it means on the 3rd of Tishrei, it means that they removed him from his house on the 2nd. It doesn't have to be the 2nd in the morning. It can be the 2nd in the afternoon. But it's going to be at a time that even if he had a relation a second before the quarantine, which will be on the 2nd, no cheshbon, 2nd, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which means, and let's say Kenida, which means he would have to wait until the 8th finished. He would only go to the mikveh the night of the 9th. Perfect. The next nightfall is the 9th of the 10th, so then he's completely tahira. The mafrashin olei sha'achas samach l'shkiyas hakam. It means on the 2nd, all the emphasis of Rav Shimi is you don't have to do it the 2nd in the morning, but as long as it's on the 2nd of Tishrei, therefore it will resolve the chashash, even if he has to wait until dark. So really we have here a machloikas between Abzena and Abshimi, whether a boyel nida is allowed to go to the mikveh at least on the 7th day time. That means boyel nida is not exactly like a nida, or like Rav Shimi, boyel nida is mamish like a nida, and as we will see, we will refute the shita of Rav Shimi. Meisvei, the kasha is on Rav Shimi. How can you say that boyel nida is mamish like a nida? The man will only be allowed to go to the mikveh after the complete ending of the 7 days. That means only at night. It says in a brayso, kol chayavei tefillos, whoever is obligated to go to the mikveh, tefillos and bayoim. The only exception is a nida and a yoyledes, as Rashi brings the psukim, that they are the only ones that tefillos and balayla. Now it's not even a ger the yoledes, because now a yoledes, right? We don't, all of the leniencies of dam toyhad is not practiced today. But nida is practiced today. The amazing thing of the chumrah that evolved over the times of the Amoraim, ultimately leading to the Bnei Yisrael Lechmiro al Atzman, is that every time a woman sees dam, we say, she's a zava. And not a zava stam, a zava gedoyla. Every time a woman sees dam, she needs to have shivas nekiyim. Even if a woman is only tamim midrabanan kesem, shivas nekiyim. But you would argue if a woman has to do shivas nekiyim, that means that you're saying that she might be a zava gedoyla. If she's a zava gedoyla, let her go to the mikveh during the day. No, that we don't say. We put upon her the chumras of nidus and zivus. What's the chumrah of nidus? That she can never go to the mikveh during the day. A woman may never go to the mikveh during the day. A woman has to go to the mikveh at night. Now, sometimes in an extraordinary circumstance, a woman will be allowed to go to the mikveh on the 8th during the day. Not even on the 7th during the day. We are that careful. We are so careful for women not to go to the mikveh during the day when they are anida today, because like the Chazal say, the lashon is that her young daughter will see the mother going to the mikveh during the day. She won't know that it was on the 8th day. We don't want anyone to see that there's a concept of going to the mikveh during the day, because then they might apply it for themselves, going to the mikveh on the 7th day. And a nida may not go to the mikveh during the day. It can only be at the end, after the 7 days finishes. Bottom line is, says the Gemara, infers the Gemara, only a nida goes to the mikveh at night. Boy, only the loy. Kasha anafshimi, the Gemara says that's not a kasha. Because, the Beraisa says a nida eno yoledis, but nida v'chol da'asi made a buya. Hello. In other words, what's the issue? That maybe he was a boy or a nida. And it says, the pasuk is in Parshas Mitzvah from all places, where it says, Utihi nidasa alav. So, a nida eno yoledis, and obviously, says Rav Shimi, if he becomes tamei because of her nidus is on him, then her laws are on him as well. She can only go to the mikveh after the 7 days ended at night, so will he. Another attempted question. Guys, we will succeed in refuting Rav Shimi. Just give it a couple of more lines. It says in a Braisa Meisvei, this is a Mishnah in Zavim. It says in a Mishnah that a Baal Kedi, if a man has a seminal emission, he is like someone who touched the sheretz, which means a sheretz is an av. If you touch a sheretz, what are you? A rishoin. What's the din of a rishoin? That you go to the mikveh the same day you became tamei. And then at night you're good. Completely good, even for Truma and Kachim. Baal Kedi is like a kamaga sheretz. However, boyol nida, kitamei meis. Now we got ourselves a problem. Because a person who's tamei meis, yes, they have to wait 7 days, and they need the sprinkling of the 3rd and the 7th. A tamei meis does not wait until night to go to the mikveh. He goes to the mikveh during the day. Boyol needs a tamei meis. Clear against him. My lav Tefilla. The Gemara says no, it means l'tumas, and it's just the length of time. No, it's a Baal Keri is tummy for 1 day. And the Mishnah wants to tell you that a boyol nida is as if he became tummy to a mace. So the Gemara says that cannot be the meaning of the Mishnah, because who needs a Mishnah for that? That's explicit psukim in the Torah. Frek the Gemara tumason. For that you need a Mishnah. Behed yiksivabuhu. Hai tuma shiva ksivbei. And v'hai tuma shiva ksivbei. Like Rashi brings the psukim, both by Tamei Meis, the Torah says explicitly that 7 days, he goes to the mikvah on the 7th day. And here again, the pasuk that we just quoted from Parshas Mitzvah, that if a man is, God forbid, boyol nida, vatihi nidasa olav. And you know what? That pasuk says, that verse says, v'tamei shivas yamim. The Torah says explicitly that a boyol nida is tamei for 7 days. So the elolav, back to the question against Rav Shimi, does it not mean litfilason? Yes, they go to the mikveh during the day. Yes, the sequestration can take place on the 3rd of Tishrei, not on the 2nd of Tishrei. The Gemara is still trying to defend Rav Shimi. I will tell you, the Mishnah in Zavim is speaking only about the length of Tumah. Mikveh has to be at night. Who needs a Mishnah and a Chanami? For that opening, you don't need a Mishnah. But the Mishnah continues. Keep on looking at the Mishnah. Second line on Amud Beis. Seifa Itzrach Alei. It's needed for the second line in the Mishnah in Zavim. What does it say in Zavim? Ela shechamur mimenu boyol nida. Even though a boyol nida, right, is tummy, as long as a tamei meis, speaking about length of time, 7 days, but he is more tummy than a tamei meis. Why is that? Shemetame mishkavu moishev, but only betuma kala letame oichlenu mashkin. I see Danny's joy learning about these dinim. So let's go 3 steps. Very simple. Step number 1: if a person is tamei meis, person is an av. If this av has contact with something else, what does that something else become? I know there are exceptions, halal cherev, but normally one down goes down a notch. So let's say we go to a levaya, we were under the oil of a mace, we had any other contact with the mace, av, we convey tumah, whatever receives tumah becomes a rishon. So I'll give you an example. If I sit down on a chair, what does the chair become? A rishon. If I sit down on a mattress and there's one mattress and then there's a mattress underneath it, the mattress that had contact with me is a Rishon, the mattress underneath it is Tahor, because Rishon cannot be Metama Kalim Midoiraisa. There are sometimes Kalim are Tami, but we're not going to talk about it right now. Okay, now Nida has a big Chumrah, huge Chumrah, and that is that number one, if a Nida will sit or lay upon something that was meant to be sat or laid upon, like a chair, like a mattress, number one, it will become Tamei on her level of an Av. Number two, it doesn't even need to have contact. So if there were 10 mattresses, that's the example that the Tanoim give, and she lay down on the top mattress, all of the 10 mattresses become an Av. All of them become an Av. Now, what about a boyel nida? So the Mishnah in Zavim says that a boyel nida is like a temei mace as far as the length, 7 days. We're not going into the Tefilla. We're not going to refute Rav Shimi. But hold on. Is a boyel nida metama mishkav u'moishav? Yes. He's metama mishkav. That means that if there was 10 mattresses and he lay down on the top one, they all become tummy, but not exactly like a nida. At least not exactly like a nida. By a nida, what do all the mattresses become? An av. A boyel nida is metama mishkav u'moishav only l'tuma kala, meaning that it goes down a notch. All of the mattresses become a rishon, but not enough. And l'may nafkamina, if any of those mattresses will touch another keli, then they will not be metame another keli, because a rishon biblically cannot be metame adam and kelim. A rishon could be metame oichlin or mashkin. That's the Mishnah in Zavim, that a boyel nida is metame mishkav or moishav. Tamei mace won't. Tamei mace will only be metame the first mattress underneath him because he touched it, but the mattress underneath it will not become tummy. A boyel nida will be metame all the mattresses, but betuma kala, meaning as a rishon, meaning they.
If you had 10 mattresses and under the 10th mattress there was, I don't know, whatever, a keli. So if it was the actual nida, the keli would actually come as a rishon and all the mattresses as an ab.
I just want to give, first of all, you're saying correct. I just want to tweak it. That if that keli was meant to be under those mattresses, then it's also tami betumas mishkav u'moishav. It wasn't underneath it, it was on the side of it. It was on the side of it. Then yes, exactly. So then if Fanida was the one that laid down, then the keli will become tummy as a rishon. And if a boyel nida laid on the top mattress, then the keli will not become tummy, but food touching the bottom mattress will become tummy. Food will become, because the bottom mattress will become a rishon. That's called the concept of your metame mishkav u'moishav, like a nida, but not mamish like a nida. P'tuma kala.
Wait a minute, so the top mattress becomes an ab because it's directly on?
No. A boyel nida never conveys tuma on his same level.
So even the first mattress, you're saying all the mattresses would be a rishon?
All the mattresses would be a rishon, clear.
Not just the top one?
Not just the top one.
Even though he's only touching the top one?
Even though he's touching the top one, but this concept of the recipient becoming just as tummy as the source is only by the source herself. He's one step removed. At the end of the day, he's a boyel nida, not a nida. Okay, bottom line is that you can still farenfer the Mishnah in Zavim. However, Tashema, now this will refute. Here you'll see, just like we learned in Zavim, that you already see a boyel nida is not mamish kenida. He's only betama mishkav u'moishav v'tuma kala. Here you'll see that a boyel nida goes to the mikveh during the day. Tashema, the tani Rabbi Chia hazov ve'hazava ve'hamitzoira ve'hamitzoraas. Chevra explicit. Uboyel nida. Tmei meis. Tfilasam b'yoyim. That's it. Rab Shimi is ois. Was not, God forbid, Rab Shimi was refuted. Only the nida and only oyir letters. These are the only two exceptions of a woman or someone whose stomach going to the mikvah at night, and therefore a word that we don't have in Yerushalmi, right? Remember, the Yerushalmi Bechlal doesn't debate opinions that the Gemara knows are not going to be taken into halacha. They don't even talk about it. Here we speak about Rav Shimi and Tiyufta, which is gavaldik, because it's not just a debate. In Tumantara, it clarified the Mishnah. So when a Yid learns a Mishnah, kids learn Mishnayos. Shivas Yomim, before Yom Kippur, Mafrishim Kohen Gadol. Ask, what day? Not so pashit. Really machloikas. But the conclusion is on the third day, not on the second day. It's so gavaldik, because today, the second day is Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, on the third day, what we call today on some Gedalia, that's when we take the Kohen Gadol away. Doesn't have to be right away, because again, even if he was with his wife a second before they took him away from his wife into the Lishkas Panhedrin, doesn't matter. In the worst case scenario, he's going to be Tamei until the 9th. On the 9th, he goes to the mikvah. And then on Yom Kippur, he starts. 7 days is because if he has a relation with his wife, not that God forbid a man will have a relation when he thinks his wife is a nida, but if right after the relation, not oisiyoim, not achar, the normal time, the way we do. I'm telling you, a person has a relation with his wife, if there's a towel there, he'll clean himself. So if she cleaned herself and she found dam, the halacha will be that as far as truma and kachim is concerned, we're going to say maybe she was already bleeding when they were together. Maybe therefore he's a boyol nida, and therefore he's tummy for 7 days. And he goes to the mikvah on day 9. Very good. And he goes to the mikvah on day 9. Okay. Now asks the Gemara another question. This is simple questions. Sometimes you are shocked at these questions. Okay. Fragt the Gemara. Again, you have to know one detail for this question. I don't want to make jest of God forbid, make light of the tzaras that people had in the last year, but when many people now quarantine from COVID, so many people use the same word, how much did they quarantine? Or let's go like this, the Kohen Gadol was not with his wife. Was anyone allowed to visit him? How strict was the quarantine? There was no Zoom then. So you should know the quarantine did not mean that no one interacted with him. Fakert, what did we learn yesterday or 2 days ago? That two Talmidei Chachamim, Talmid of Shal Moshe, they would go in there and they would learn with him halachas. It wasn't 100% quarantine. People went and spoke to the Kohen Gadol. I have a very simple question. You're telling me a chashash, something very rare. A man has a relation with his wife and then she turns out to be an Ida. Hold on. A man can go into the room to teach him the halachas, or to have a fabringen. You can't have a nebuch person 7 days alone. And during that conversation, the visitor passes away. That can also happen. And then he'll become tummy to mace. Make up your mind. It's a far-fetched chashash. It's not ein l'davar soif. If he cannot be with his wife because of this chashash that it's going to come out that he was boy on nida, maybe someone is going to pass away talking to him. So hafrishu mitumas hameis. Tumas hameis means don't allow anyone to enter his chamber, because anyone can just like that pass away. Omar Rav Tavchlifa, the father of Rav Huna, in the name of Rava, we're skipping the parentheses, Zois Oimeres, that tumas hameis hutra bitzibur bomba. Wow. Yes, you're right. There is such a fear, but I don't care. Now we're saying I don't care if there's going to be a tumas hameis, because since the avodah of Yom Kippur by nature is of it's communal nature, and like we spoke about in the intro, we have this big klal, as we'll see in a moment, and we're following the shita, not that tuma dechuya, that tuma is overridden. Overridden means that if it happened, that happened, but we make efforts it should not happen. That's called dechuya. Hutra means that the source rule is psachim. That fact that the Torah says, ish kiyah tamei lo nefesh, only an individual that becomes tamei cannot bring the Pesach, goes to the Pesach Sheni, learn Chazal. Really, God said that rule, but that's the hint in the Torah that an individual has to give up Pesach Rishon. But if the community is tamei b'tamei meis, they bring the Karban Rishon. And then we had the Gzeira Shava, we had Psachim from Psachim to other Karbanis Tzibur. Now I want to make one thing is important. We already touched upon it. There were certain Karbanas on Yom Kippur that the Kohen Gadol brought out of his pocket. His chatos, his ayol, la'oila. So to say that all of the avodah of Yom Kippur was considered a communal, the truth is, we'll see on Daf Zayin, not exactly. The chatos, even though it was for him, other avodas were dependent on him first bringing that chatos. So therefore, the dispensation of truma, whether it's dechuya b'tzibur, whether it's hutra b'tzibur, we will apply even to that chatos, because if he won't be able to bring the chatos, then the communal cannot happen. There is one carbon and ayol, and we'll speak about this on Daf Zayin, that's mamash a private carbon that he brings out of his pocket on Yom Kippur, And you know what? If he becomes tamei, he won't be allowed to bring it. The question is, are we going to enact a rule that no person can visit him because of that? At kedei kach, that's the logic now, we're not going to go. We're going generally, 99% of the avodas of communal nature. Since tuma, not the chuya, but hutra, that is why he's allowed to have visitors. If we would say tuma only the chuya, then we would have to be afraid of such a possibility. That's his opinion. We'll see later on. The Gemara says no. That just because something could happen, it's not could something happen or could something not happen. There's different degrees of possibility. The Gemara is the second answer will be that it's more possible for a man to have a relation with his wife, and it's going to turn out that she was a nida, or perhaps she was a nida during the relation, and hopefully not. Hopefully she began to bleed right afterwards. That is something that is more possible than when you have a visitor visiting you, boom, in the middle of the meeting, the person passes away. But that's not the first answer. The first answer is enachanami, there's such a fear. But since not the chuya, hutra, who cares? It's amazing. We learned that they sprinkled the ashes of the red heifer. We do take steps to make sure that he's not tamei b'tumas meis. But on the other hand, again, it's a chashash. Maybe someone will die. Here we'll pull up the card. Listen, and if taka he became tamei b'tumas meis, if he became tamei, we don't have to have the other kohen gadol. Now hold on. If you don't have to have the other kohen gadol, why did we have a backup kohen gadol? I want to say like this: tuma hutra b'tzibur is only for tumas meis. If you remember the first Rashi we learned in the Masechta together, we spoke about him becoming a balkedi. We mentioned, why are we afraid of a balkedi? There's a miracle. No. If any tuma that's yoytzi migufa, we had some sachim. If the tuma comes out of his body, we don't say tchuya b'tzibur. We don't say hutra b'tzibur. We're speaking only about if the source of tuma was outside of him. The example here, it's also a sheretz, but also a mace. Here we're saying, Zoyse Meres again, that tuma hutra b'tzibur. That's answer number one. All in the name of Rava. Answer number two, this is Gavaldik Ravina says, no. Afilu teima tumas meis t'choya b'tzibur. T'choya means, yes, it's overridden, but we have to take greater measures to make sure it doesn't happen. So back to the question, why are we allowing him to have like a Hasidic quarantine? I wonder, people come and visit. The answer is, tumas hameis lo ishchicha. Tumas beis lo ishchicha. There are different possibilities, and we don't bunch all of the might be's in the same bag. No. Again, a man having a relation with his wife and her turning out to be a nida, it's also very rare, but it's more common than you're having a meeting with a person. Of course, if the Yid that's coming to visit the Kohen Gadol is already almost being a goysis, they're not going to let him in there. But you're speaking about a healthy person that's coming to visit someone. Again, the Gemara is not denying the fact that it does not happen. It's very rare. It's very rare that all of a sudden someone passes away on him. Whoever remembers, just to mention, one of the Guraris of blessed memory that passed away, I was in 770, right when they were going to make psicha before Kol Nidrei. And Punkt Rebbe used to wish him every year, Zos the Leben Iber Ayar, that was his bracha. Iber Ayar, and you imagine he got the bracha for the psicha. So he lived exactly a year, and there they were doing CPR on him, and the Rebbe told, after an hour of saying Tehillim, based on what the doctors were telling the Rebbe, the Rebbe says that we have to move on with the davening. The Rebbe asked them to keep on giving him CPR until when they removed him from the shul, because of the kohanim. Nuances. In other words, since halachically he did not yet pass away, even though that the movement of his heart was artificial, but that's the end of life when the heart and the breathing stops. They were still being CPR'd and v'chulei, so that at least prevented the kohanim of being in a room with someone who has the status of a mace. Anyways, back over here. Yes.
Can I ask just a side question sort of here? Why can't he sequester with his wife and just not have relations with her? We trust a couple to not, a married couple, to when she's a nida to not be together. Why can't they do the same thing? I don't know if that's
okay, that's it. You can. It's correct. It's a chumra yeseda. It's an extra stringency. No doubt about that. Huh?
There's always temptation.
Well, no, but then he's okay. 1 second. Just to know the rule is that there's yichud minachol the sugi and kedushin, that yichud is midoiraisa. But if there is a woman, two things. Number one, you already had a relation with her at least once, and she will become permitted to you, even if she's not permitted right now. like our wives when they are anida, as long as we did the first Be'ilas mitzvah after the wedding, then there's no Isur of Yichud. That's what then, in other words, in other areas in halacha, a man can be with his wife when she's already anida. Danny, the only counter is that when one's wife is anida, he knows that they cannot have a relation. It's off the table. Here, she's not tamei, she's tahaira. So you're telling him, don't have a relation because she might see dam right afterwards. He'll tell his wife, let's have a relation. You know what? Don't make a bedika right afterwards. Wait until achar. Not wait for 30 seconds. That's the word kaven. There's a lot more temptation because sometimes when you're chayish to something that's so far-fetched, that in itself is the problem. You say, it's never going to happen to me. Let's go weiter. Itmer, guys, this is ground zero. This is the sugya. How great is that? Yoma davav. Tuma dechuya, tuma hutra. Let's go. Itmer, we learn. Tumas hameis. That's tumas hameis. Not tuma yoytze megufay. Very important. But if the source of tuma is from the outside, what status does it have? When we learn that when it comes to a communal carbon, it's brought. Is it like b'chlal, there's no problem with tuma? It's hutra, it's completely permitted. It's a non-issue. No, it's an issue. Elamad, the importance of bringing the communal carbon overrides it, but it's an issue. And Lamay Nafkamina, we'll see over here, how much effort do you have to make to avoid it? So Itmar Tumas Hameis, Rav Nachman says, Hutra hi b'tzibur. As Rava extrapolated from our dinim over here. Rav Sheshes says, no, it's only the chuya hi b'tzibur. And now let's limit their machloikis, and we're going to have two versions. Version number one, when you have in the group of kahanim that are designated to do the avodah today, if you have both those who are completely taught and some that are tamei b'tamei meis, kula amaloi pligi, even the shita of Rav Nachman that says it's hutra, still, even he holds that the tahoirin avdi tameim loyavdi. Let the ones that are tahir do it. You have to make no effort. They're there anyways. This is amazing. In other words, there's different ways of understanding hutra. However, this is one version. We'll see another version that doesn't agree with this. However, ki pligi, they argue, is if no one in this group is tahirim. They are all tamei b'tamei meis. So now you have to seek out other ones. So the question is, that is where you have a machlokes, and which is, Rav Nachman says, heteri b'tzibur. So therefore, listen, no one is here to hide him. You don't have to make that effort. We're speaking about communal korbanos. I want to remind everyone, guys, we just learned this in Pesachim, right? In Mishnah Pesachim. When you bring a korban betuma, you know what happens? The part that goes to God is done, but it's never eaten. The only exception was korban Pesach, if you remember. The only exception is the korban Pesach is eaten. But come back over here. Rav Sheshes says, and different mehadrinon. That's one version. That limits Rav Nachman's shita of hutra. It's even though hutra is not like a mamash 100%, if there's tameim and tahoirim. But ikad amri, the second to last line, no. Afilu heicha de ikad tahoirim utameim. In that group, they are there. Imagine, palig Rav Nachman v'Amar. That's the meaning of hutra. That when it comes to community service, we're colorblind. We don't see tahir and tamei. It's the same thing. That of the nami tameim. Wow. Because daf zayin amad aleph, because the whole tumas meis b'tzibur rachmana shari, it's completely lifted. It's completely away. How great is that? Chevah, we'll stop over here. And if I'll let everyone know on the chat, I would very much like